Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of RPG Radio, we're finishing up part 2 of the Witch Hunter build that I started 2 weeks ago. Took a little break, but I appreciate everybody's feedback voted in the poll, so I'll be back next week with the theory crafting video on how to create your own builds and at least be confident that they're going to carry you into the late game. So, all that being said, let's focus on our build today and jump right in. Now, you'll remember from the last video, the Witch Hunter is an occultist mixed with a Nightblade, and as things go right now, it's a pretty 50-50 split on the buttons that we'll be pressing when playing this build, but it definitely favors the Nightblade in passive abilities as well as damage dealing. So, what you'll see and what you really need to make this build shine in the later stages of the game is all gear. Specifically, there is one set that really pushes this build as far as it needs to be when you're approaching level 100, and that set is the Vileblade Pact. The Vileblade Pact is a 4-set armor set that's going to include 2 weapons, a helmet, and a jacket. Much like the Blind Assassin set, you're going to have basically the exact same thing, but a lot more focus on acid and poison damage, and some really cool effects for your Blade Burst and Bloody Pox. Specifically speaking, the weapons, the Razor and the Fist of the Venom Blade, are both going to be introducing an additional meter target area to Amarasta's Blade Burst and another 20% weapon damage. So they both do that, meaning that when you have both of these weapons, you get 2 meter target area to Blade Burst, which is fantastic for making it hit more people, and ultimately proccing your Abomination acid explosion more often as well. And it's going to be doing 40% more weapon damage. Considering we have 2 weapons, things are looking pretty spicy. So there is, let's see, Razor of the Venom Blade is definitely doing more damage, and it's got built-in armor piercing, while the Fist of the Venom Blade is more focused on basic physical damage and has some flat acid damage equipped to it as well. Both weapons come with a skill called Venom Spines. It is the exact same skill for both of them, but for both weapons it has a different chance to activate. So with the Razor, you've got a 25% chance on crit to activate Venom Spines, and you have a 15% chance just on basic attack for Fist to activate Venom Spines. And the reason I'm even bringing this up is because Venom Spines itself is doing acid and poison damage fantastically. It's also getting us some weapon damage. It happens in a fairly decent radius while passing through enemies, so it pierces, and it is going to well, it's got a chance to fumble enemies that it's hitting. That means that enemies that get hit with Venom Spines have a 12% chance to not be able to use their abilities. All things considered, with the amount of opportunity that you have to use this passive from these weapons, that means enemies are not going to be able to hit you for about, 10% of your engagements, which is pretty good. I mean, it helps you avoid a lot of damage, and because this class is a little bit squishy, considering that there is no shield, no real defensive focus from the kit itself, getting hit hurts. So the less we get hit, the better, and fumbling bad guys is a really good way to keep that going. Now, if you just watch me run around in circles talking about how cool all these weapons are from that monster shrine, it's because that monster shrine was incredibly gross. Celestial shrines, I think that's what that one was called, always come with the huge caveat that they are going to hurt like mad. And that's all I need to say about that. So I guess if you're interested, we're floating around in the East Marsh right now. It's a dangerous domain. I do want to jump down into the basement of this place to go kill the Sentinel and get an extra attribute point. No, it's not attribute. Well, it's attribute when you open the place up, and then you get a skill point when you talk to the attendant at the end there. So that's what we're doing it for. We're just clearing the whole place out to maximize video potential too while I talk about our build. So, curiosity sated, let's talk more about our Witch Hunter. Now we're going to talk about the other pieces of gear in this set as well because, well, number one, the helmet, the cowl of the Vileblade, is important in that it's going to modify Amarasta's Blade Burst and Bloody Pox, but less importantly, the stealth jacket of the Vileblade does not modify any of your abilities. Ultimately, this one's just going to be big points into some of the abilities that we're rocking, but completing our set nonetheless. The jacket was the last thing I found, and I had to re-roll a set piece at the inventor at least 7 times to get this thing to even show up. So the fact that I had to waste that much money on it really upsets me, because this build was sitting pretty at about 1.5 million scrap before all that happened, and the inventor just ate all of it and gave me almost nothing in return. So all of that rant aside, let's get back to what the Vileblade hat is doing. First off, it's giving us 3 points into Bloody Pox and 1 into all Nightblade skills. That in and of itself is amazing. And the hat is really where this all started. You'll remember from the last video, we did have the cowl of the Vileblade as really the first piece of gear for this set, and that really dictated how I wanted this whole build to go into the end game. But after that, the mythical cowl of the Vileblade is going to decrease Amarasta's Blade Burst cooldown by 0.3 seconds, which is pretty good because it is already a very short cooldown, and that means that we can almost spam this ability very, very often. On top of that, it's taking all of the cold damage from Amarasta's Blade Burst and turning it into acid damage. And at this point, this far into the game, we are almost completely funneled into acid and poison damage. There may be a little bit of cold lying about, but really all of our abilities are going to focus much more on acid. After that, though, we're going to switch over to Bloody Pox, and the best part about this hat is that it is shaving off 10% pierce and poison acid resistance when we use Bloody Pox. Now, Bloody Pox is the opener for the combos when it comes to this build, so when you're engaging on large groups of enemies, you want to rip that first. Mainly because it's going to activate your Eye of the Guardian devotion. That's the big reason I use it, at least offensively, but because it has the ability to shred some resistance from enemies, it is even more important to activate it first when jumping in. So it's fantastic that it works so well with this set. Now, like I mentioned, once the set's complete, there is a lot more happening with it, so let's talk about that. The 2 set, really, it's just a buff to your pierce, acid, and poison damage. I mean, that's all well and dandy. I'm not gonna say that's bad, but it's, you know, it's underwhelming for sure. 3 sets piece is going to give you a big bump in offensive ability. You're getting 8% physical resistance, which is enough to just, I don't know, it's enough to jump and squeal and scream, and not being able to swear in a YouTube video is it's a little disappointing, because some of us like to emote with bad words, and that is, you know what, it's fine. It probably doesn't affect me. I'm a really teeny tiny YouTube channel, so why am I complaining? But anyway, back to the set pieces. So, physical resistance, it's ultimate, it's really, really important, especially for melee-focused builds, and I think ultimately that's the reason it exists in this set anyway, because it's a purely melee set. So, After that, we're also getting 12% skill cooldown reduction, further dropping Amaras's Blade Burst, and I don't have to sing the praises of cooldown reduction because that's fantastic. Now, the 4 set is ultimately what makes us deal damage. It's what makes us big and scary in Ultimate. 4 set's going to give you 3 to Blade Burst, 3 to Bloody Pox, which are 2 of our signature abilities in this build, and it's going to modify Blade Burst, Bloody Pox, and Possession for our whole Witch Hunter aesthetic. It's fantastic. So remember, we got 40% extra weapon damage for Blade Burst from both of the weapons for the Vileblade, which is the Razor and the Fist. This is adding another 40% when we complete the 4 set, bringing it up to 80% additional weapon damage, which is gross in a good way. It's also adding flat acid damage to the ability, further bumping up the elemental type of damage or the magic type of damage that we're doing, which is, whew, I mean, it just doesn't get any better. It does, but you know, we'll get there. And then Bloody Pox is also getting flat acid damage, even more than Blade Burst is, which is something to say because Bloody Pox isn't really used for damage when it comes to this build, but it is very, very helpful for a lot of other reasons. Add to that we're getting health leech, life leech, attack damage converted to health. That's the stat in Grimdawn. We're getting 12% of that to Bloody Pox. So when we activate that on a cluster of enemies, we're getting a good chunk of health back, like the diseased vampire that we are. After that, you're also getting vitality damage converted to acid for Bloody Pox, which is fantastic in and of itself, because the modifier that we're using for Bloody Pox has more points in it than the base ability, so that is also providing acid damage. And just randomly picking up a purple Targo's Mallet from a corpse. Remember, if you're coming back here to the Burwitch Cathedral, that corpse is full of it's like hidden spoils. It's a good corpse. Flip it over, you'll get yourself either a blue weapon or a purple weapon. It's almost a guarantee. Now, the remainder of the set is Possession. Possession is our passive occultist ability. It's an exclusive skill, so we're going to have only that. Luckily, it doesn't compete with anything in the Nightblade tree, so we're just going to use it anyway. But it is converting 50% of the chaos damage of Possession to acid, which is great because that's what we do. And it's giving us another 6% physical resistance, which is the most important part. Getting that physical resistance up to either 40 or as close to 40 as possible when you're in Ultimate is absolutely tantamount to your success as a melee character. So remember, physical resistance is everything that you have to have. And then lastly, when you finish the set of the Vileblade Pact, you get a skill that will activate on a 33% chance on critical attack. You'll get what's called Venom Wrath. That means that, basically we're going to be doing flat acid damage, reduce health regen from enemies that get hit by it, and also shred their poison, acid, pierce resistances as well. So you take that with what we're already reducing with the Bloody Pox from the helmet modifier, the cowl modifier, and we're looking at about 24% resistance reduction just from items. So I know we spent a very long time talking about that set, but it is incredibly important for this build in Ultimate. I'm going to go pick up the rune stones that I'm missing right now. I'm missing Salile and Bismail for the Hidden Path quest. That's what we're trying to finish right now. So you'll just see me pick those up in the background real quick. It's going to be nice and simple, easy stuff, and I can talk to you more about some outliers in the build. Now, in terms of skills, remember a lot of what we had in the last video is going to carry over here, but some things I just want to re-mention or mention for the first time, since the build did change a little bit. I guess we'll just shotgun that real quick. You do want dual blades in this class instead of just taking the Breath of Balgothian for the dual wielding, obviously. But dual blades gives you physical resistance, and having 9 points in there means that you get 10% physical resistance. In and of itself, that is incredible. So just do it, love it, and you can stop at 9 because 10% is pretty big. Unless you're gonna hit the physical resistance cap. If you're very close to it, I'd recommend putting more points into dual blades. As it stands right now, I've got a couple extra points hanging about, so that might be what we end up going with. You do want to max out Amarasta's Blade Burst and Lethal Assault. Those are going to get points from your gear as well, though, so if you're playing for maximum efficiency, there may be some room to take points from Amarasta's Blade Burst and funnel them into other abilities. I haven't sat down to do the math, so it might happen, it might not, but really max both of those out as much as possible, or as soon as possible, because they do account for a pretty big chunk of the damage in your build. Next, we've got Ring of Steel. This one is going to have a maxed out number of points as well, but as far as completely overmaxing it, getting it to level 25, that's all up to the gear, and it's not a huge focus of the build to begin with, so it's okay. You're also going to want to take a Ring of Frost, which is going to convert the piercing damage to cold damage and let you freeze targets. Shadow Strike is next. Shadow Strike is, you don't need many points in the ability itself. What you really want to do is max out Nidala's Justifiable Ends, which is going to decrease the cooldown significantly, add crit damage, and a whole bunch of poison damage to it. And then you're going to want to max out Nightfall. Nightfall is going to give you an AoE, which is kind of the bluish, dark bluish circle, the AoE that you see on the character when he leaps in. Every time that we jump in with Shadow Strike, that big blue aura that shoots out around us is Nightfall. But that has a chance to put targets to sleep. It is also some lifesteal, some vampire stuff going on, and it's dealing cold damage. So it's really good. Really good. Next is Pneumatic Burst. Again, this is another one you don't really need a lot of points into the base ability, but you do want a whole bunch into the next, which is called Shadow Dance. I've got 10 points in here for a 20% chance to avoid melee attacks and projectiles. And that's just, I mean, that's it. It's really good for that. And like I've mentioned earlier, being a melee character, you want to be able to dodge and stay alive as long as possible. Night's Chill, you're taking that to reduce cold, poison, and acid resistance. But you only need 1 point into Veil of Shadow to get Night's Chill, so there you go. And then max out Phantasmal Armor for energy absorption and armor. A good way to keep your energy bar as high as possible. You need 1 point in Blade Barrier for your panic button, and then Merciless Repertoire is also maxed out. And then we can go over to the occultist side of things. You only need 1 point in Blood of Dreeg, and then the rest of your points are going to go to Aspect of the Guardian, because this is giving you physical resistance as well as a boatload of poison acid resistance. And then, obviously, Bloody Pox. This one, I sat about halfway. We got 7 points into Bloody Pox, the base ability, but we are going to max out Black Death at 12 points, because that is where all the poison damage is coming from, and it has a chance to confuse enemies hit by it, which makes them basically walk in circles and not hit you. So, it's good stuff. And then Possession, the final ability in the occultist side of things, is going to give you your 25% chaos resistance, 100% skill disruption protection, and because we have got the set working for us over time, that's giving us the 50% chaos converted to acid, as well as 6% physical resistance, And not to mention, this ability is also giving us 15% damage absorption at the end of all things. My god, how much more can we talk about? There's still devotions. It's just so many. These have not changed at all. The only thing I really did from the last video to this one was to take 2 points out of Ulzwin's Torch and those resistances and put them instead into Owl for Cunning and Spirit, as well as, more importantly, Elemental Resistance and Skill Energy Cost Reduction. Those 2 points into the beginning of Owl are more important than those 2 points into the beginning of Ulzwin's Torch. So, really, at the end of all things, your resistances should be your prime focus if you're playing in Ultimate anyway. So if you don't have those maxed out, you need to worry about that. But as far as everything else I've told you in this video, that is going to help you deal the most damage. That's going to make your character the nuke monster that it can be. It is a dip, dive, dodgy assassin who is just built for mobility and damage, and this is an incredibly fun build. I had so much fun playing this character that I may end up doing it even more often. That's a great helmet. I've been wondering, but yeah, the Sentinel, the enemy that we just killed, dropped that helmet, and it's fantastic. So I got myself a new transmog, never picked that up before. It's pretty dope. Anyway, back to the build though itself. Super fun. I'm probably going to be playing this more often. This may become kind of a farming build for me. I don't know that I would do super good against some of the Celestial bosses with this build just because of its squish factor, which is a little bit sad. But I haven't actually tried, so regardless of what happens, I'll be playing this one more often because it is very consistent and it is very fun in terms of playstyle. We got our extra skill point, not that I know what to do with it, but yeah, so that's the Witch Hunter build. I know this build was basically half talking about the Vileblade Pact set, but I cannot stress to you enough how important those items are for playing this type of Witch Hunter. You don't have to obviously play. You can focus more on Occultist if that's what you want to do. You can figure out other ways to play this, but Vileblade Pact works insanely well the way that I like to play the Witch Hunter. So that's it. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. I'll catch you guys next week with a theory crafting video on your builds, how to make those yourself. Until next time, peace out.